Good morning. We are together for the next 40 minutes. We are going to light tomorrow with today. I want to take you on a very short and very quick personal journey of how I learned to fall in love with work. And I'm going to tell you some personal stories, but more importantly, I will stop talking at some point and would like all of you to share. That's also one of the beauties of this nice intimate setting that we have. And what you'll do is you'll think that, well, she can't possibly stop talking enough to let us talk because she can talk and talk and talk and talk. I've been doing that since I was born, or a year old. In fact, I have a brother, Timmy, who's 3 years younger than I am. And he didn't speak until he was 3 years old. My mother was naturally very worried about this. 3, that's a little bit late. She was talking at 1, why isn't he talking? So she took us to the doctor, and the doctor looks at Timmy, he looks at me, he looks at my mother and says, if you shut her up, he'll talk. How do you know Timmy needs a cookie? I'm still recovering from that. So my point is I will consciously stop talking so you all can talk as well. Because I think your stories and what you can share with the group is as interesting as what I have to tell you. And actually my story today is to talk about, are you happy at work? And why is that important? It's important for the obvious reasons. I don't think we think enough about it. We tend to do, as people, what we're good at, but does it make us happy? I worked full-time since I was 16. I grew up in the United States, I had to pay for my own college, so I had to work 40 hours a week starting at 16. I worked 40 hours a week through college. And you just do things you're good at. I am a really good janitor. I'm an excellent janitor. I walk through big buildings now, and I see people running the high-speed floor buffers, and I can do that. I can do that. Not a lot of other executives could walk through and say that same thing. I don't think it pays as well as some other jobs, but that's a really separate topic. But my point is we very often get to be doing work that we're really good at, but maybe doesn't really make us happy. We may be doing things during the day, and for me it's PowerPoint. I always make the joke, and for all of you people who love PowerPoint or works for the company that makes PowerPoint, I'm apologizing in advance. But if I only have 15 minutes left to live, I'm going to work on PowerPoint because it'll feel like forever. I just don't like it, right? But I'm really, really good at it. I can tell when the font is wrong. I can tell when things are out of scale, if things aren't lining up. I am probably the best at PowerPoint I know. I hate it. So some of that, and when you start adding up those things, I would offer that you're not actually happy at work, but you're good at work. And I think one of the things to always remember, and this is something I learned the hard way, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, is would you really forget some of your favorite moments in your life? You wouldn't. So why have we forgotten as people, over time, what makes us happy at work? And I would say, and this is what I've just been talking about, what you need from work. If you ask somebody what do they need from work, they'll talk about what they get from work. I get a paycheck, I get health insurance, I get security for retirement. But what do you really need? I would ask you to think for a minute. Those things are important, absolutely. And a sense of accomplishment is what makes me happy. Someone saying, thank you, I see you, you do a good job. It's nice to see you at your desk. It's nice to know what you've done. That's actually what's making me happy. Of course, the paycheck keeps me sleeping indoors and eating every day. I like that. At the same time, it isn't what I go, oh, yay, I got a paycheck. I did that when I was 16. My first couple paychecks, probably like all of you, your first paychecks are so exciting. But over time, it's really a sense of being recognized, it's a sense of accomplishment, it's a sense of being valued. And so my comment to all of this is the things at the bottom of that chart become a little bit of a golden cage because we're so used to doing what we're good at and being compensated for it. So I actually have a story I want to tell you about me personally, and then we'll get into kind of my tips and how we can go forward. But I'd really gotten to a point, I'd been working, as I said, full-time since I was 16. I was a janitor, and I cooked eggs, and I filed papers when I was in college. And then when I got out of college, I was a computer programmer. And then I was an auditor, and I traveled around the world for Philip Morris. And then I traveled around the world for Kraft and IT. And then I went to an alcohol company that makes Guinness and Smirnoff and Baileys. And then I wisely joined the supply side of healthcare and joined Siemens after working on the demand side for so many years. So I'm doing my retribution. But throughout all of this, I just kept working harder and harder and harder. I felt I had to be the person who fixed everything. I felt I had to be the person that if there's charts to be done or presentations or a trip to India for 4 hours, I had to be the one to go. So I was a CEO of a $100 million business, working for Siemens, and I got to the point where I couldn't work one more day. And I went into my boss and said, I'm resigning. In fact, I called him on the weekend, and I said to him, can I come see you? And he said, yeah, as long as you're not quitting, you can come see me. I'm like, well, and then when the dead silence on the phone, I went, well, that wasn't the way I was hoping to tell you. Ow. So I went in to see him, and I said, I just can't do this one more day. I'm exhausted. I'm working 80 hours a week. I think there's another 3 years. We've turned the business around 2 years earlier than anybody thought. Under my leadership, together with my team, we did amazing things in this business. But there's another 3-year cycle coming, and I can't do it. I just can't do it. I'm so tired. And he said, well, do you need to leave Siemens? And I said, no, I don't need to leave Siemens, but I have. He goes, you have to quit. And I'm thinking, I thought I worked for a smarter person. I told you I can't work anymore. It means quitting. And he said, no, could you quit in 6 months from now? If you take 6 months off, would you hold off resigning till then? Because we actually would like to keep you in the company. We can't pay you. You haven't been here long enough to qualify for sabbatical, but we'd like to postpone your resignation. And I went, that might not. And I was all excited to quit, right? I was going in there going, I'm quitting today, it's gonna be over. And I went, I didn't quit, But then then it took 7 months to find my successor. But knowing I was leaving at some point but let me give you an example of my life at the time when I went in to resign. I lived in New York City. I was the CEO for a shared services business. We had 800 employees in India, and I would leave Saturday at noontime. I'd go to fly to Frankfurt on the 5 o'clock flight to make the connection to Bangalore, to be landing in Bangalore at 1 in the morning, Monday morning, to go to a board meeting at 9 a.m. From 9 a.m. the airport to the hotel was an hour and a half from the airport. Get to the hotel at 3 in the morning, get a couple hours sleep, go to the board meeting from 9 till noon, have management meetings with my team after that, be on the 2 o'clock plane, 2 a.m. on Tuesday night, and then because the beauty of time zone changes, I was able to be back in my office in New York at 8 o'clock Tuesday morning. That's normal, right? Hands in the air for everyone who does that. Come on, humor me a little bit. And the thing is I didn't realize that wasn't normal. I thought that's what I needed to do. I had people counting on me. I had a team counting on me to turn this business around. And it wasn't so much that my boss expected it. He's a really reasonable human. I felt I had to do this. And if I didn't do it, I'd be letting the team down. So what was my answer to it? I decided to run away. Because that's really sensible. You're a CEO, you're running a big business. At that point in time, I'd been working 30 years. I was 46 years old. I'd been working 30 years. And I decided, okay, what's really the next best career step I can make? See ya. I couldn't have done it more wrong if I tried. Then, after I ran away. I really gave up my career with no plans. I just said, I don't care what happens next, I have to stop working. And so I didn't have I'm going to go work for a charity or do something that I can bridge and explain on my CV why I sat like a lump for 6 months. I didn't do any of that. I had the option of staying at Siemens, which was great. I hadn't planned on that, but when I went in to resign, I hadn't expected that to happen. And I went to the beach. Yeah, I went to the beach. And my life became, as I call it, a three-legged stool. I was sleeping, I was eating, I went to the beach. I didn't, you always think, when I have 2 weeks off, I'm going to clean every closet I have. I didn't do that. I'm going to organize my papers. I didn't do that. Even better yet, I'm going to eat well and lose weight. I had ice cream 2 times a day. I was the opposite of what you think you would do when you finally have some breathing space. Because I really thought with some breathing space, not only would I rest, but I'd actually self-improve. And then after about a month, I started on the internet looking at what happens when you do what I did, when you take a break. All women who take a break do not get good jobs coming back. All women who take a break come back at 50% pay of when they left. All women who take a break ruin their careers and never get to recover from them. I went, well, that's not good. Huh. And I was so tired at the time still that I didn't even overreact. Now, I'm a natural worrier. This is what I do. If I could get paid for worrying, I would be very, very wealthy. I like to worry. I like to think about what if this happens, what if that happens. So I was at such an extreme point about needing a break that I didn't even do what I was good at, which was worry. And I didn't worry that I had no career. Now, I had some advantage knowing I was potentially coming back to something in Siemens, not to my same job. They had to fill it. I was running a $100 million business. You couldn't leave that job open. So I was coming back to something that might work out. And how I kind of got fixed, and here's the one thing I did really wrong during that time. Well, I did many things really wrong, but here's the other thing I did really wrong. I didn't ask anyone for help. I just figured if I could get some sleep, that'd be enough. A little bit of sleep, I'll be fine. A little bit of sleep, I'll feel good. And during that time, my husband worked with a colleague in UCLA, and his name is Mike Phelps. And Mike Phelps writes me an email saying, Denice, your husband tells me that you just dropped out of work. Here's a lesson I know about work. I just want to share it with you. So I turned to my husband and I said, well, who's this Mike Phelps guy? And he said, well, he's a professor at UCLA. He works together with us. He's a nice guy. Go ahead and answer him if you want to. So I said, well, Mike, thanks for that. And now let me tell you what I think about work. And I spent the summer emailing with him all these stories about stuff about work. And let me give you an example of one of the stories. When I was the CEO for shared services in Siemens, we had colleagues in India, still do. And I go to India, and I walk the floor and shake everyone's hand, kind of like I did for the first group that was here. I like meeting people, I like shaking hands. And the supervisor brings up this individual next to me, and he has on a neck brace, like he's been in a car accident. And he says to me, Denice, Manesh processed 1,400 invoices in 16 hours. And we normally expect them to do 200 invoices a day. And I said to Manesh, now, Manesh is, Siemens has, for those of you who are unaware, we do business in 190 countries. We have 400,000 employees. So Manesh is one of 400,000 employees. And I say to him, Manesh, why did you do this? And it was a quarter end, and it was important to get it done. He said, well, he goes, many of my team called in sick, and I felt that the team wasn't doing what they should do. So I felt I really needed to personally step up. And I said, no. Why did you do this? Because he said he's not the manager, he's not a supervisor, he's a processor on the team. And he said, well, the big house of Siemens is counting on me. Can you imagine for a moment, you're the CEO of an organization with 2,000 people. You know you belong to a company of 400,000 people. And here's this person in front of you, in a lower ranking role, thinking that the big house of Siemens is counting on him. And I realized in that moment that as a leader, I actually had to earn my leadership role. Because there was people like this in our company who were having this perspective. He could have easily said, oh, I did my job and I went home. And so these were the lessons that I was rediscovering by writing to Mike. And I realized that in these lessons, this is what meant something to me. So I didn't want to go run a bed and breakfast or make goat cheese or, all the things that when people drop out, they tend to go do something very different. I actually wanted to come back and have this again. Because this was something very special. Even to this day, this is one of those moments that kind of gets me to go, So with that, Mike asked me then a lot of hard questions, and I had to tell him more and more stories. It's really hard to write what you believe to a complete stranger. Because when someone knows you, they fill in the gaps. When someone knows you, they give you here's the part that I know about her, so that's how it's connected. When you're trying to explain to a complete stranger what you believe and what's important to you, it takes a lot of thinking. So while I was sleeping and eating and going to the beach, when I'm sitting at the beach, I'm really thinking about all this stuff. And so I really rediscovered what was important to me. And that while I was working in a stupid way, and I needed to never go to India for 4 hours again, I actually loved the things I did. Who knew? I didn't know when I was leaving. And so when I came back, so through that process of 6 months of writing to Mike, I really rediscovered the inspiration I had from working. I fell in love again with the work aspects that I enjoyed when I was first doing them, when it was so exciting to work as part of a team and accomplish something that no one thinks you can accomplish. To be able to say, look, we did that. You all thought we couldn't do that. We did that. And so a couple of the other lessons that I learned is through this time, and I am excellent at this. Next to worrying, I am excellent at addressing urgent things. Oh, look, shiny thing on the floor. I love change. I love change. I love things being different. I love everything being a little rock and roll. Urgent is so exciting to chase after. It's probably not important. My example of that is I very much, as leaders, as people of influence, it's important that you talk to people, that you look at people in the eye, that you talk to them, that you see how they're feeling, you see their body language, all this stuff, right? Because otherwise you're not really hearing the full message of what they're saying. But I would have a PowerPoint that had to go to Munich in 10 minutes. So a person would come in front of me and say, I see you. Denice, I see you. Can I talk to you? Like, PowerPoint. And so I would be sitting there chasing the PowerPoint or whatever it was and actually putting aside the stuff that was important, which was connecting with the person. It doesn't mean deadlines aren't important. You always have to make deadlines. There's deadlines for a reason. But at the same time, I would very often trade doing what seemed urgent for doing what was really important and doing the things that made me happy. This I think is self-explanatory. We are not human doings. But it feels like it, doesn't it? One task after another, one task after another. I like writing. I went yesterday to Schreibmeyer to buy to-do lists for my Filofax because I'm now going backwards. I'm now going back to paper. And I picked 5 packs of to-do lists up. And he goes, 5? That's a lot of to-do lists. I said, and as soon as I get home, I'm crossing off the go buy to-do list. He's like, never mind. I'm in recovery. I'll get over this. But we get very, very busy. And when we're busy, we finish things. Finishing things feels good. But it often isn't the things that make us happy, but it's the things that we have some sense of it's over. And then the last one, click. This is something that happens at work all the time, and I don't think we're fully prepared for it. I wasn't before I really had a breakdown. And after my breakdown, I'm much more aware. I told you the story about Manesh. But I want to tell you a different story that isn't directly about my work, but really influenced me. I was in my 20s, and I moved from Richmond, Virginia to New York City. In Richmond, Virginia, this is a million years ago, so I was making $30,000 a year. Ooh, rich! In New York City, I was making $39,000. Ooh, rich! My rent in Richmond, Virginia was $400 a month. My rent in New York City was $900 a month. Ooh, not rich. And I wasn't very good at budgeting at the time. Don't tell anybody because I've been a CFO twice and that would not be a good message to get out. But I wasn't good at budgeting. And I got very often in the month where I didn't have any money left, or just a little bit, before the next paycheck. So I ate pizza every day. Because in New York, you can buy pizza by the slice. I'm from a small town. This is magic. In my small town, you have to buy the whole pizza. I go have pizza by the slice. And I got wider and wider and wider because I'm living on pizza. I enjoyed it though, I have to say. So I started running. And up until then, the farthest I had ever run was 2 kilometers. That's the farthest I'd ever run. So I go over to Central Park, where they have a runners group at night, so everybody can run in the park and be safe together. And the man running the group, his name is Abdul. I'm 22, 23 years old. Abdul's over 50. He grew up in Harlem. I grew up in a small town in upstate New York. We're pretty different people. And he says, how far are you? You're new, how far are you running? I said, 2.5 kilometers. I'm going to really be. And he goes, well, the shortest distance that we go is 7 kilometers. Like, I outweigh you. What are you going to do, drag me around the park? So we start running, and within minutes, my head is exploding. Central Park, for those of you who haven't visited it yet, is very hilly. And if you're not much of a runner, which I'm not, and you're 60 pounds overweight or whatever it was, this is not funny. And I said, Nato, go slow down, you're running way too fast. This is why you can't run. We get around the park, and the way it works is you just run a big circle. You start here, and you end here. But we get at the 2.5 kilometer mark, and I realize I have to run all the way to get back. I got tricked. And I said, Abdul, what do you do? And he goes, well, I'm a night security man and a man in Harlem, because I'm just trying to do anything to be distracted. And he said, I'm a night security man in Harlem, at a bank in Harlem, and I help people train for marathons. And I went, oh. I said, seriously? I said, I could never run a marathon. And he looked at me in that moment, and I can still tell you where I was in Central Park, even to this day, and he said, before today, you could never run 4 miles. And I went home that night, because as a kid, my idea of going outside to play was to take my book outside and read it, and hide, so my mother couldn't see I wasn't running around. I never thought of myself as an athlete. I never thought of myself as being able to accomplish something athletic. And here's a person who, graduated high school, and I've graduated college. We're really different people. And he changed how I looked at myself. And I went from there, so that was August. In December, I ran a 30K race, 18.6 miles, and then the following year, the first of 4 marathons. Really slow, by the way, really slow. When I'm out there, it's like I'm stopping for lunch and having a beer and, I ran New York 3 times and Berlin once. But my point is I took that to work with me. I took that lesson of I could probably be anything at work if I really want it and can work hard at it. Now, was I going to win marathons? Absolutely not. It was important to be realistic. Look at me. This is not a winning marathon body. Not unless everybody else doesn't show up, and then I have a chance. Or I can drive. Maybe I'll ask him to let me drive next time. So, unexpected lessons, and this is one of the things I suggest helps you to fall in love with work. Because these kind of lessons actually happen during the day. And I think all of you have something like this, which was kind of an aha moment that makes work a very special place. So here's what I rediscovered, because I see that I have 22 minutes, 48, 47, 46. I'm counting it down. I'm going to definitely be done by the 20-minute mark because I'd like to take questions, but more importantly, I'd like all of you to say, oh yeah, you know what, and this is true too. I needed to be awake to the moments that matter. I was really, before my burnout, I was like walking through sand or walking through water. I was just on autopilot, doing the things I was good at, accomplishing everything I needed to accomplish, and just not really being fully awake. Driving on the New Jersey Turnpike to my office was the highlight of my day. That's not the highlight of anyone's day, by the way. I had to learn to pay attention to what I really needed, and it didn't matter if no one else needed this. It didn't matter that I needed to talk to people 6 hours out of the 10 hours I was in the office. It didn't matter. If that's what energizes me, that's what I needed to do. And to be happy in the moment. When I get that next promotion, I'll be happy. When my office goes to flex time, I'll be happy. You know, when I lose 50 pounds, I'll be happy. At the risk of sounding a little depressing, what if those things never come up? What if those things never happen? And very often, when I get this, when you do get this, maybe something else comes of that. The new promotion is in Kazakhstan. Right? So, what I've learned is be happy now. Because now we're guaranteed. Right this minute, we're guaranteed. You know, the future is a promise and the past is just the past. But it's hard to be happy now. It's hard to say in the moment what's making me happy. Your smiling faces, that's making me really happy. I'm sucking the energy out of you, because that's why I like talking to groups, because I suck the energy out of all of you. It's my little secret that I just shared with you now. You're all going to go, no energy, don't take it. And then click, what about you? Do you know what makes you happy at work? Would you like to reconnect if you're not already there today with the things that used to make work fun? Think about how fun the first paycheck was, or how fun the first project that you accomplished with somebody that nobody expected you to do. And if I can do it, you can. I really learned it the hard way, and frankly, I was stupid. I got very lucky, and I was very appreciative of getting a second chance. And after my 6 months, I came back to Siemens, and they didn't have a job for me, but there was a couple special projects I could do. And then after about 6 more months, which I did, and I was open to doing them, so I didn't come back and say, I was a CEO, I need to be a CEO again. And then 6 months after I came back, they made me the CEO for our global shared services business, which is which at the time was, you know, over €1 billion business, 8,000 employees around the world. One would offer that if the job I had before caused burnout, this one really should cause burnout. And as I did it, people were like, how could you be so relaxed? I said, because I learned to do my best is enough. And to not keep trying to make it a little more perfect, be extreme. I learned that if my best, together with my team, that is absolutely enough. And trying my best will have to be good enough, because otherwise I will be crazy again. My family contends I'm a little bit crazy anyway, but that's a separate topic. We're not really here about that today, but in the bar, absolutely, tonight, let's talk. So, here's my top 5 tips that I learned from me, and I'll share with you. I mean, your top 5 tips will be your top 5 tips. Be very clear about what makes you happy at work. I know it's being with people, talking to people. I limit the time on the stuff I hate. I mean, it still has to get done, and you figure out a way to do that. Maybe you find someone else who loves doing it. But I also try not to let it be 8 hours of my day. Consciously separate the urgent from the important. The urgent will always be with us. Be here now. So this moment, be in this moment. And then don't wait to be happy. Do the things that make you happy now. Do the things at work that make you happy now. Yeah? So I think being happy at work, I think we can light tomorrow with today. I think Elizabeth Barrett Browning did say it correctly, that we have the ability to have a spectacular life, including the work piece, through achievements, by being happy at work. And I hope that a little bit of what I've said might help you from doing the extreme version that I call of, dropping out, because that dropping out time, while I needed it, wasn't my finest moment. I learned a lot, and I look at other people and I say, let me keep you from getting there, at least by telling my story. Not because I'm an expert, and not because I have all the answers, but because I think as humans, we want to know that someone is a little bit like us, and we don't feel so alone when we feel we have to be perfect. And I very much appreciate, when Silke and I were talking last night about today, and she said to me, she goes, well, I have this Nelson Mandela quote, and I always get emotional at this part. When I was on my road to burnout, right before I kind of collapsed, I have a really good friend, and he's a psychologist, and he said, you're not afraid to fail. He goes, what you're afraid of is to shine. He said, you have to figure that out. He goes, because you deserve to shine, like everyone does. It's like, so I think all of us can shine. I think it's this conference, the things that we're hearing, the people that we're meeting, I think there's an unbelievable opportunity for everyone to shine and to be happy at work. So with that, I kind of lied. It's now 16 minutes, 27 seconds. But I'm going to stop talking. As I pointed out before, I also don't need to breathe when I talk. So everyone is really polite here, and everyone's thinking, well, when she takes a breath, I'll interrupt her. I don't need to do that. I breathe through my eyelids. Seriously, I can do this all day without having taken a breath. So, stopping talking. Zip. Questions, comments, reactions? Everybody wants to quickly get a cup of coffee when they didn't expect it. Oh, question.
I would like to know, what is your experience, what is the perception of the environment or of companies of burnout?
I have to say, since I've been very open about being burnt out, and mostly people at my level don't talk about it, Siemens in particular has been hugely supportive. In fact, we did an internal TV video last summer, and it was very well watched, and people were like, wow, she's talking about it. And of course, people are then nervous, but when asked, I talk about it. And so I'm kind of the role model for burnout. Yeah. Wow, my mother's so proud, I'm the role model for failure. So I think, I know at Siemens in particular, I've had a great response to this. And I felt actually when it first came up and came out, I was a little bit nervous talking about it. It's very personal, right? It's a very personal thing to say, I was failing and I didn't know how to fix it and I just dropped out. It doesn't feel good to say that, but it was true. And I always feel better when I tell the truth.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being so honest. I think that you are being a really big role model, and I think only with talking we can change, the environment and the perception on burnout, and I think we need to do that.
And since I came back, as I said, I was the CEO for Global Shared Services in Siemens. I was the CFO for our US business, which is our largest market. I was the CFO for our healthcare diagnostic business, our global diagnostic business. And now I'm the Chief Diversity Officer. So the other message was the company didn't lose confidence in me because I dropped out. Which was also, I'm very appreciative of. I'm very appreciative of having the opportunity to come back and get to do all the things I love doing in roles that had meaning for me. Yes?
I apologize to ask you to repeat, but I think that maybe the other presentation lasted a little bit longer, but I wanted to know, okay, we hear the term burnout. We basically know generally what it is, but what symptoms did you have? What did you go through? You probably covered this in the beginning.
I couldn't sleep. I could eat. I was really good at eating. Oh my God, I was so good at eating. I couldn't exercise, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus, everything. Oh, shiny thing. I was hugely distracted. I just felt like I was a hamster on a wheel. And I thought, but that's work. Work is hard. I've been working full-time since I was 16. And, I was a janitor. I did a lot of not fun jobs. I didn't expect work to be fun at that time. And so therefore I expected it to be hard. And somehow being a perfectionist when it's hard, for me, and this is a terrible analogy, but when I'm hungry, I'm automatically losing weight. I must be because I'm hungry, right? I need to suffer to lose weight. I know that's not the right answer. I know that. I've read everything you can read about it. But the work was sort of like that for me. As long as I'm suffering, I must be working really hard. Yeah. So I was making myself really miserable. And nobody expected that of me. The thing I realized kind of in hindsight when I was writing to the professor in UCLA, if my job was Starbucks barista, would my family care? Would anyone who cares about me love me less if my title isn't CEO? Really? And so where in my head did I think that was necessary? That moment was a little scary to figure that out. But then it was actually very liberating. Because I thought, well, the people who care about me and the people I care about, they don't care what I'm called. So, thank you.
Can you tell us something about your initiatives? So how you influence your environment with your ideas?
So I talk a lot. I talk a lot. Because I hope that if I say something that makes sense to somebody, they go do it. I am very much don't ask permission, ask for forgiveness, get going. So if you have a good idea, okay, you can't be we're all part, especially at Siemens, I'm part of a very big company. So there's certain ways to get good ideas into the business that make sense, otherwise it's a little chaotic. But don't stop and wait for permission or for someone to say, well, someone much more senior than me better have a good idea. Good ideas come from anywhere. And so, for example, here's the now I'm switching hats, Chief Diversity Officer, Siemens AG. We have Diversity at Siemens Facebook page. I've benchmarked other companies. We're the only ones with a page as active as ours is. We're the only ones where mostly employees post, not me. I post too. I post my personal Facebook account. And we have 3,400 likes. So if I was to ask for anything today, I would really like it if you go out and like our Facebook page, because I'm always wanting a few more likes. That'd be good. Please like us. But that's something that came from one of my team. It wasn't me as a Chief Diversity Officer saying, we will have a Facebook page. In fact, they said, let's have a Facebook page. And I went, okay, I'm a worrier. I'm thinking about all the things that could go wrong. Let's try it. Let's try it within the rules of the company and da-da-da. And then be prepared if it goes completely wrong, we'll take it down. That's the worst thing that could happen. So that's an example of a good idea, not started by me, done within the normal structure, and get started. Let's get going.
I also like your Facebook page.
Thank you. You're my favorite now in the audience, by the way. Any other, there's a question in the back.
How can a person start not caring about the society's expectations to be considered successful?
Oh my gosh, that's a really hard question. Anybody else have an answer? I still do, right? I won't pretend to say that what society thinks or my peers think or what all of you think, I won't pretend to say it doesn't matter. Actually, it matters a lot to me because I want to be part of humans and I want to have that connection. I think it's more, I had to learn, for me, and this is again, it's very personal, so it's what works for each of us as individuals. But whenever I felt stressed or whenever I felt like, oh, very negative, I would remember my family. Or I would remember my best friend, or I would remember my husband, and I'd say, would this matter to them? And I go, no. I go, okay, then there's a safe place to go. So that's how I cope with, because every now and then we do. I was at an event, I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and I completely got the dress code as wrong as I could have gotten it. And you really stand out when you're the person not appropriately dressed. And I didn't think what I had on was so bad, but I clearly wasn't And it was one of those events where when you aren't dressed right, people are wondering, are you here to get coffee? Yeah, well. And I sat there and I thought, really, I care about this? Do I care about this? This is crazy. If my clothes are a barrier to being able to talk to people, I'm probably at the wrong event. And I'm probably putting too much of a focus on it, looking around and feeling a bit insecure. So just pretend I'm wearing the right thing and talk to everybody. So I trick myself. I try to trick myself too. Moments, because we all have those moments where society matters. It does matter. And it needs to matter in line with our values, I guess is. And I know everybody here probably has a much better answer than what I just said. So does anyone have advice for our colleague? Hint, anyone else have advice? Yay! Oh no. Ava, Victoria, you can have advice too. Good, well we have 7 minutes. There's nothing wrong with finishing early, I think, if there's no more questions. And I just want to, I have 2 quotes I love because they inspire me. And the first one is by a famous philosopher who once said, every ceiling once reached becomes a floor. And I can see over my work life, the 30 plus years I've been working, how many floors we're standing on, how many ceilings that we're actually standing on as people. And it's events like this one, you know, the high quality of what DLD is putting together, the people in the room that turn the ceilings into floors. And then the last one is actually one that's really, I've done many things that I'm proud of in my life, of course. I always get emotional at this part. And this is one of the things, I can't stop getting emotional. And I get emotional at work all the time. In fact, I recently wrote a blog and posted it to the Huffington Post that said, crying in the office makes me happy at work. Never really thinking that would be a bad title of a blog, or that it would get some of the responses it gets when you put something like that out in the public space. Not the same as Maria's rabbit coat, but nonetheless a little intimidating. And with that, I know that when I get emotional though, it's because I'm so in the moment and I'm feeling what I feel. And then I tell everybody, I'm getting emotional, and everyone's like, oh yeah, as usual. And then they move on. It's not actually something that anyone remarks on anymore. But in the earlier days, I would hide it, right? And women can't cry in the office. Well, then I have to not show up in an office. I always have to be on a conference call, because if anybody ever sees me, they're going to know this. And so, but Sir Isaac Newton and I are contemporaries, and he once said, if I have seen further, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. And I think of all the giants that have been in my life, my colleagues at work, all the people like yourselves. And if I get to have a little bit of a further view, it's because I have such a great foundation of giants underneath me. And that is really one of my biggest motivators for making me happy at work, is knowing that this is possible. So I wish you all much success, and I wish you all a great rest of the conference, and thank you for coming in. It was really a pleasure.